well, some of you may know or not know. Today we're going to hear from Dale Wilson. Dale is the publisher of the Port of Call newspaper that you see about town. It is a monthly news magazine. And kind of Dale and I share a little common thread here. Dale is a true son of the South. Is that become politically incorrect? I hope not, because I've always loved that term.
Just the flag.
Just the flag, okay. Dale is a native of Texas. He was reared in Mississippi and Tennessee. He earned a bachelor's in journalism from the University of Tennessee, and he got a master's in organizational communication at Murray State in Kentucky. And that is what Dale and I share. He is a fellow son of the Commonwealth. He has worked as a team building consultant for industry and also taught at both the high school and the college level in Tennessee and Arizona. He's done radio, television, and now most recently print publishing. He recently celebrated his 10th wedding anniversary with his wife Wendy, and Wendy is from British Columbia. I'm so glad we sang "Oh Canada" today, Dale. He has one son, Adam, who is in the banking business in Tennessee, and two stepsons, Patrick, a chartered accountant, and Will, a rafting and climbing guide, and they both live and work in Canada. He shares Kiwanis values and service to youth, and was for several years Director of Development for Youth Town of Tennessee, a children's home where he spent 4 years as a youth. He still considers himself an educator and has chosen the Port of Call News as his latest medium for informing the community of the various challenges facing us. Dale says his first job was on a paper route in Memphis, and it looks like his last job will be his paper route here in Port Angeles in Clallam County. So Dale wanted me to share with you his publishing philosophy, which comes from the masthead of his newspaper that he threw while he was growing up in Memphis. And his philosophy is give light and the people will find their way. And I'm very pleased to introduce to you Dale Wilson. I think you're going to find his remarks both interesting and provocative, and I hope you'll have some good questions for him at the end. Dale, all yours.
I hadn't counted on provocative.
I always work on provocative.
I'll have to dig deep for that one. Before I start out, I want to make an announcement about the Peninsula Area Public Access Channel, which some of the people, especially Stephanie and myself and several others, are attempting to get started so that we can have our own public access channel right here in Port Angeles, so that if you don't want to get up off your couch and go to the council meetings and the county commission meetings and the EDC meetings, all of those meetings where they're spending your tax money, you'll be able to bring them in on your remote control, and also they'll be stored there, so if you sleep through the evening, then you can bring them back up on your computer. So, and I do want you, I urge you to go online to what they call SurveyMonkey and give them some feedback about what you would like to have on cable channel, if you're subscribers now, what you hope to get from cable when they renew the contract with Cablevision out here.
Dale, just real quickly, that announcement was also in your utility bill this month, that to how to go on to SurveyMonkey. So when you open up your electric and water bill, that information is in the water bill.
There's just some extra copies of that. Thank you, Stephanie, for bringing those. You know, I don't have any idea what you want to hear, so I'll just go with what I want to tell you. First of all, I hope you have seen some of our copies of Port of Call. We're in our 3rd year of publishing now. Kind of an interesting story as to how and why we started this. Again, I spent most of my life in communications, either teaching it or writing or in radio or television, and communication is just in my blood. And as you know, communication comes from the same root word as community, and I know all of you are community builders by your dedication to youth and young people into your community. So this is in my blood. And when I got to Port Angeles, I called myself retired, and I tried to write, when the CSO project came up, by the way, how long do I have?
Till 11,
Oh, okay, golly, I can't talk that way.
as long as you need.
But when I came to town, I saw this CSO project, the Combined Sewer Overflow Project, and I started reading about it, studying up on it, and I realized that what we had then was a process by which we treated the sewage that flows into our sewage lines. But their plan was to build a collection system where we'll not only treat sewer, which we have to pay for by the gallon, but we're going to also treat every drop of rain that falls in the city at cost per gallon. And I thought, this is nuts. You know, it's going to be billions of more gallons that treatment center is going to have to treat. So I wrote a letter to the editor of the local daily paper, Peninsula Daily News. And I got a call from the publisher who said, why are you writing this? And I said, well, I've got some concerns about this CSO project. First of all, the $52 million price tag of it. Secondly, I think it's insane to collect and try to treat all of that septic, all of that sewer water. And also, they were going to build it, and they were going to take over this tank out here on the Rainier project and store 5 million gallons of sewer in there. I mentioned in my letter that this is sitting on a seismic shelf that wasn't there 300 years ago when that 1700 earthquake struck and pushed all that land down into the strait. And I said, if we have another shake like that, that 5 billion gallons is going to be in the drink along with our $52 million. And I thought that that's probably not the best way we can plan for our future. And so the publisher again wrote back and said, and we're doing this over email, said, well, where do you get your facts and figures about that earthquake? And I said, from the Peninsula Daily News. And he wrote back again and said, well, where did you get this figure about the being on a seismic fault? And I said, from your newspaper. And he said, well, we don't want to scare people. And he wouldn't, unless I took out the seismic stuff, the 5 million gallon tank sitting on a shelf, he wouldn't publish my letter. And so I thought, okay, communication is going to be tough around here. And so, let that alone for a second. Not too much later, I used to have a radio talk show, and I thought that would be a great market here for a radio talk show. And so I went over to the local radio station, KONP, and offered to purchase an hour a day, 5 days a week, for 6 months. Offered to pay in advance. I said, yeah, we don't need that. We don't want any more voices out here. We're happy with what we've got. So I began to think that it's really going to be tough for a new voice to enter the conversation here. And with some of the, pardon the expression, some of the goofy things that are going on, I thought there needs to be a new voice in this conversation. And so that's how the protocol was born. And I'm very pleased to say that we have almost 99% affection, and the 1% that's left over are the ones that we write about. And I'm pleased to say that the ones we write about, 99.999% are the ones who would put their hand on the Bible, raise their other hand, and said, I'm going to take your tax money and I'm going to do good with it. And I'm going to try to hold them to that. Not just me, but the protocol crew is going to try to hold them to that. And so that brings me to a current issue that's facing the community. How many of you have ever heard the term bold-faced lie? Anyone? Everyone? Well, growing up I heard it a lot, not because I was telling them, but a lot of people around me were telling bold-faced lies. And I always wondered, what is a bold-faced lie? I mean, how do you make your face bold? And then I realized it's a printing term. All of you who use word processing now, when you want to bring extra attention to something, you go up and highlight it and bold it. And that's what bold-face is. Well, I have for you a bold-faced lie from our daily paper, May 3rd of this year. And it says here on the front page, 2-inch above the fold, it says, $2 million composites grant okayed. Well, it hadn't been okayed. Still hasn't been okayed. I wrote Mr. Brewer another email and said, Mr. Brewer, I have the same letter that you got from the Department of Commerce. And it says, this is to let you know that we've received your application. It requires further consideration. This does not guarantee final approval. Does not bind us to an award. So how do you square this headline with the reality of the letter that we got? And he said, well, we told them they had to give some more information to the feds. Okay, I'll. Now, about 2 weeks later, another article came out about this, and once again they said $2 million has already been given to the port for this composites recycling thing out here. And I wrote it again. I said, has something happened that I missed? Because I've been watching this news and I haven't seen an award of $2 million yet. And I checked again this morning and we still don't have a $2 million award for the composites. But on the strength of this, well, first of all, on May 1st, they received this letter from the Department of Commerce saying, we received your application. On May 3rd, the daily paper did the front page above the fold, bold face, $2 million grant awarded. And then 2 days later, your county commission, on the strength of this headline, gave $1 million to the port. No strings attached, no contracts, no memorandum of understanding. They just met one day and said, hey, we're going to give the port $1 million, and they went and did it. Except our treasurer, bless her, Celinda, I think she's a member of one of the Kiwanis clubs. Is it this one or another?
No, she's not a member of this.
Our treasurer, Celinda Barkhouse, said, wait a minute, I don't think that the taxpayers are being well treated with this. You don't have any contract, you don't have any memorandum of understanding. All you have is a desire to give away $1 million of tax money. And now, folks, this is money that's coming, all of you that own property here, this is your money that they're throwing around like this. And how many of you would give to any project that had no memorandum of understanding, no contract, that, in my opinion, no board of directors in a for-profit world would even lend a dime to, but they want to just throw your money across the table at this. So that just goes to show you there is still a need for an independent, and what I'll call just an independent voice to try and get the rest of the story out. Those of you that are familiar with Paul Harvey. Yes, sir, did you have a question?
No, not really, but well, it's kind of a question. But of course, anything new in Port Angeles is not going to make it. The city council's against everything, good, bad, or indifferent. But the funny thing about the $1 million to the port, the damn port's the only thing in this whole Calhoun County that's making money. So why the hell do we need to give them $1 million?
Well, they're not making money.
Well, if they're not, then somebody's stealing it.
I'll go along with you there.
But everything they got, including those ships and the harbor, the drayage fees and everything else, is big time bucks, and I know because I'm in the oil industry.
Yes, sir. And then let's keep this in mind for a second. The port has control of $90 million in assets. Mm-hmm. And everything that they have was given them by the taxpayers of the county. Now, they may have had to buy some things off and on in between, but they've got $90 million or more in assets. But they're still operating at a loss or at a deficit every year, at least for the last 4 or 5 years. They have not brought in a profit. Now, there's nobody in this room that, if given $90 million in assets, couldn't park it in the bank somewhere and draw, what is it, 1/2%? What, 1/10 of a percent, something like that. You can tell I don't have much invested in the money market, or at least not in the States. So, yes, the port is charged with being the job creator, the job engine for the community. They're not doing very good at it. They have 10 buildings that are vacant right now, and have been for some time. They have no marketing plan to get people to come in and rent these buildings. They have the marina down here at John Wayne Marina that is about 150 to 175% above what a for-profit marina, the cost for operation there are about, I heard a figure last night, 150 to 175% above what it would cost for any private business to run it. So they don't have to worry about that as long as they can go on your taxes, go on your property and levy and get the operating funds that they need. So, is there a leadership vacuum? Yes. Do I really believe that they're stealing? I don't know. I haven't been able to get any leads on that, and I've been trying to figure out where does the money go. And I don't accuse anybody of stealing. If you accuse them, I'll probably go along with you, but I don't accuse anybody of stealing because I haven't got any indication of that. But it's awfully incompetent. I did send Mr. Hallett an email this morning. Mr. Hallett, Jim Hallett, is the president of the Board of Commissioners, and he is also a financial advisor here in town. And I asked him, since they do not have, well, first of all, they don't have a business plan, they don't have a contract for a source of materials to recycle, They don't have a customer base for what to do with these if they do get some to recycle. So they're really just, it's an idea. And I asked him, since you don't have articles of incorporation, why don't you open up this business to allow private individuals to invest in it? And then invest all of your clients' money in this recycling project that you're so proud of. Now that was just this morning. I haven't heard back from him yet, and I have a feeling I won't. Yes, sir.
I got another little insight that you don't know.
Please tell me.
There's backers in New York, and I won't get into who it is, through the Indians, that will put the recycling plant on Indian land. That way it gets away from all the bureaucratic crap. And they'll invest the money to do the whole thing, and the people they talked to turned it down.
No surprise.
Okay, yeah, well, that's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
The same is, they're always talking about another deep water port because we could repair more ships and stuff like that. They got Rainier down here that's deep water. It has a place to tie a boat up, and it would cost less than $3 million to clean the damn thing up and get it moving. And they turned that down.
Let me tell you something else that I've heard they turned down. I've been, this maybe one of those urban tales. Downtown, the Lee Hotel, is that the name of it? Before it was remodeled and refurnished, the story is that Microsoft wanted to buy it. They wanted to send some of their programmers up here, have them operate, you know, their programming and so forth on a couple of floors, and live on the upper floors. So that would bring dozens of bright, intelligent, educated people here with big incomes to spend here. But you know, they couldn't get the permits through to get that done. So Mike, here's what I have determined from my study, and I've been at this for about 3 years now. I think that there's probably about 24 people in this county who run the county. Now, I don't know their names, and I bet you know some of their names, but I don't know if you know all of them or not. But I really do believe that there's a cadre of people who like to keep things exactly the way they are. And so they don't want a lot of new people coming in here. They might vote. And they don't want a lot of people coming in here with big money to spend because they might get in the way of the way that the money is being spent now. But when you talked about the city council not getting behind anything, I have to disagree with you there, because the city council is now, or excuse me, the city of Port Angeles is now about $175 million in debt. Every time the city staff brings a shiny bauble and waves it in front of the city council, they all go gaga and buy it. And that's why we got this $50 million CSO project. That's how they spent $1 million for the Harbor Works, if you're familiar with that. The Harbor Works was an intention to sell the Rainier property out here by a group who didn't even own it. How cool is that?
Yeah, but now we do have a new clock right downtown at the transit center. The only people in there is transits.
Let's talk about the transit center for a second. And I think that pain is still in some of your mind. There was a $15 million cost. Now, I was in the construction business in part of my misspent youth, and although I didn't build projects as big as that, I have a reasonable idea of the value of construction. I don't believe that you could get that insured for more than $6 or $7 million. I think that's about what the value of it is. So where that other $7 or $8 million went, I don't know.
That depends if the toilet's working, and it's not.
So let's add the Gateway, the Harbor Works, the Business Incubator Project. Have you heard about that one?
Yes.
Business Incubator Project was, again, a grant funded. They went through somewhere between $8 and $12 million of taxpayer money. The idea was ostensibly to put together a clearinghouse where anybody, any entrepreneur who had a good idea could come and get help putting his business plan together. They were going to hook him up with financing, him or her up with financing. They were going to help them roll out and get new businesses started. Well, after somewhere between $8 and $12 million, I can't get a firm figure, but at least $8 million went through. They decided that no more grants to be milked, and so they turned out the lights over at the Skills Center, leaving all of you with $750,000 that debt still owed by the Business Incubator Project, in which now you taxpayers are now paying off at the tune of $48,000 a year. So I guess what I'm suggesting to you is that we really need to keep hook on these guys. And I don't know how many of you are attending these meetings. I have attended more meetings in the last 3 years than I did the first 20 years of my professional life. But I'm trying to get a handle on what is going on, who are the movers and shakers, why it's going on, and how can we put the brakes on some of this silliness? And I'm so pleased to have Celinda on the front page of the last 2 copies, because she really did put the brakes on this $1 million up until now. Now, they're probably still going to get this $1 million through, and at least they will go back and do it the right way instead of just throwing it out there. They're going to have a public hearing where people can come and weigh in on it, tell what they think are the positive ideas, what they think are the negative ideas. But the main thing about that public period is that's what triggers the 5-day window of opportunity for anybody in the community to go to Superior Court and file suit and let the courts decide if that's a proper way to do it. So that's, in my understanding, or in my guesstimation, that's the reason they didn't want to have the public hearing to begin with, before to give that $1 million, because they did not want to start the clock on that 5 days that you get to take it to Superior Court. If you'll notice in the follow-up articles in the daily paper, that's what they're trying to do, is keep this out of court. They don't want the courts to weigh in on it. And then what they said was there may be some other difficulties. And my guess is there are some other difficulties. I think you could go back 10 to 15 years and find some other difficulties. But that was before my watch. I've only been here for 3 years, so I'm not taking any responsibility for that. But I am, and some of you may say, well, why do you appoint yourself as a self-appointed critic? You don't even live here. You didn't grow up here. You didn't graduate. Well, 2 things give me license to be a critic. Number one is the First Amendment. We have a right to a free press. The second one is I'm a taxpayer. And I think that's every taxpayer's right, is to study their government, study the government spending, and critique the government spending. And now, a lot of you would say, well, give us some better ideas. Well, that's not my job to give better ideas, although I do have a couple of better ideas. Instead of this $5, $6, $7, $8, $10 million composites recycling that is not being done anywhere in the world, but somebody over here at the port suddenly figured out how to take toxic waste and make a profit on it. Imagine that. Well, I've got a much less glamorous idea. I would like to see them take some of this wood that is sitting down here on our waterfront now and make, well, first of all, change and teach them how to build wood pellet burning stoves. I've got 2 in my home. They're so efficient. It's the best heating source that I can imagine, the most efficient. Very little ash is left, and it heats the house wonderfully. Teach them how to build these wood pellet burning stoves, and then use some of this fiber that we've got down here and build us a wood pellet producing plant. Now, that would give us the family wage paying jobs. It would be a work that could not be outsourced. They could not send it offshore. So every time we send a load of logs on those barges to China, China is smothering itself. Most of their heat, their household heat, comes from coal. If you've ever seen pictures, if you've ever been to China, they're suffocating. And if we were to provide them, this would be high tech for them. These wood pellet burning stoves would be a huge improvement. But every time we send a load of logs, we could send a load of wood burning stoves, and right behind that, a barge load of wood pellets. You've got security for the future. You've got these kids that are coming out of school now would have a job that they could work here in the community, and instead of going off to Seattle and other places to earn a living, we would keep our young people at home. And I know all of your efforts are in trying to make the way easier and better for our young people. But if they come up, you spend all of that time and money and investment and love, and then as soon as they get 18 or graduate from high school, they have to go away to find good work. They can't make work here, or excuse me, they can't make a living here with the jobs that are available to them now. So even if we do train them as they're planning to do out here at the Peninsula College for this composites recycling, there was 4 in the class, but a fellow that I talked to that was in the class said they're just going to get that certificate and then go down to Seattle and go to work, because they can make 3 times as much with that certificate in Seattle as whatever they can make here. So I'm going to urge all of you to urge your city council, excuse me, your county commissioners to rethink this huge investment in something that we know nothing about, that there's no background to learn about it, and then do something less glamorous. Build us a wood pellet burning plant and put some of these kids to schools or to work so that they can stay here and your grandchildren can grow up here and you can get to spend more time with them. Now, that's about all I have to say today, and I'll be glad to answer questions. Yes, sir.
I'm going to give you a little bit of background, okay?
Thank you.
I'm a product of an excellent Jesuit school back east. Very expensive, very hard to get in. They have an English department separated from the rhetoric department. This is more like Port of Call I'm going to talk about, okay? Because I was in the business school, all of our subject matter in English was in the rhetoric department. Expository writing, argument, public speaking, okay? So when I read your newspaper and these articles, I think you see to send some of these people that write for you back into some basic rhetoric courses, because they tend to ready, fire, aim as they write their articles. It's very screed-oriented and very editorial-oriented. They state a thesis, but they don't state a fact to support their thesis or experience, their own experience to support their thesis before they write the conclusion. And one example of this was these written, it was more like an attack on Russ Venemer and the Chamber of Commerce, and the part that went, he gets paid way too much money, whatever he gets paid, what does he do to earn that kind of money? And I was reading the sentence, I don't have a problem with the whole article, but that was lazy journalism, because I just went to the library, got on the library in 5 minutes, found out he made $94,000 a year. I think your paper needs to become a lot better. It's just scattered
I hardly agree.
screeds. That's all it is.
I heartily
It's a
agree.
rag. It's a rag.
Would you like to offer an article every month? Show us how it's done.
Well, I'm a very good writer.
So the city
I'm
paper
retired.
and fish wrapper. So
Well, so what?
Yeah.
I'm just saying.
You know what? I agree with everything that you say. We're not professional trained writers, all of us. We have heart, and we try to put out what we think will be a good way to focus attention on an issue. Now, that was probably my article about Russ Venema, although there's been a couple of other writers. But at that time, I could not find out his salary.
It's just on a computer. It's
Well-
just, all of everybody's salaries that has to do with the city is, in 10 minutes, you can find all these salaries.
No, actually, I sent a request to the Chamber of Commerce asking for that, and they said, we don't give out that information. And also, you cannot get a membership list or contact list for the chamber members. So, your point is well taken, and we would like to become a whole lot better paper, but let's keep one thing in mind. Everybody here is volunteer. Everybody on this paper is volunteer. They bring their heart and whatever talent they have with it. Yes, ma'am.
Dale, follow that up with who does write for you and how do they get in touch with you to submit articles? If I remember correctly, you don't have staff per se, you're staff.
My wife and I are staff, yes.
Okay.
On page 4 or 5 of each issue, it'll tell you how to get in touch with us. And it says here, Port of Call encourages your letters and comments. Please let us know what is on your mind. Send comments too. So, and also, I think I need to flesh this out some more. If you want to write an article, we have been inviting people to write articles since we started. Because we would much rather find out what's on your mind than to assume and use what we think you ought to know. We'd much rather get the feedback from you. And if you're not an accomplished writer, then give us some bullet points and we will try to flesh it out and get more information on it. But I hardly urge you to write us an article every month or as often as you feel like it, and show us how it's done. Yes, sir.
I went to a Jesuit school too, but it didn't cost quite as much as
I went to the most
probably didn't
expensive
have
school
to
in
be
the
as bright to
Catholic
get in,
school.
so I was able to
There you
get
go.
in.
And got less.
But the reason
You're about to get into a busy match.
was that
Fran went to a jail. Fran went to a
Please,
jail.
let's say one person at a time.
over the past 100 years or so, the number of newspapers in this country has dramatically declined. I know back in New Jersey, at one time, we had 2 basically state newspapers, the North Evening News, which was a great paper, and then the Star Ledger, which still exists. The North Evening News went out of business about 40 years ago. But that's been true all over, every city, every state. And when I think about the United States, and we have a two-party system, the one good thing about the two-party system is that whatever party's in power is constantly being checked by the party out of power. They're constantly raising questions about what the in-party is doing. When we lose newspapers, we lose that voice. We lose that second opinion, third opinion, if you will. And so the one benefit to having an upstart paper like this is that it will raise questions that perhaps are not being raised by the single newspaper. And so to that extent, I would say it does a public service. Jack's point is taken that perhaps there are some instances where some of the facts could be ascertained and put into the paper, and perhaps as it evolves, that will happen over time. But I think the public service that a second paper does is that it at least helps raise the questions, and by putting it in print, it does more for, in terms of public service, than if it were not there at all. We would just be subjected to the one version that is filtered from the one paper. So,
Since about 1986, when there were 6,000 or more independent newspapers in the U.S., now almost all of those are in the hands of 4 or 5 corporations. So there's hardly any independent voice. And I'll also suggest that while you have the looks of a Democratic Party and a Republican Party, I've heard many people say, and I think I agree, we have one party, and it's the money party, and so you have the left and the right wing of the money party. Because I'm not seeing a lot of checks and balances, no matter who's in the White House. And I see very little daylight between when one president goes out and another president comes in, because they are mostly ruled by the money party, and which oligarch is going to give the most money to this one, or which oligarch is going to give the most money to this one, is going to determine your politics until they overcome and overturn the Citizens United. One other thing about newspapers, yes, they are disappearing rapidly, but as you may know, Warren Buffett, billionaire, Warren Buffett, yeah, he just bought 2 or 3 newspaper chains. And somebody asked him, don't you understand that print media is dead? He said, yes, except for the local print media. And those that stay close to their knitting, stay close to home. And so we're not trying to talk about world events, we're not talking about even state events. We don't even try to tell you about the suicides and the murders and the rapes and the robberies. That's not our cup of tea. We're trying to tell you about these things where they're taking your money and throwing it away. That's most of what we're talking about. Now, there's some other things. When I first started this, I thought we were going to do some kind of a Casper milquetoast type shopper news. And then the very first month we put out, in the Christmas issue, had a picture of Santa Claus and a little girl on it, and had just great fluffy stories about the shopper's news. And then in January of 14, I drove by the courthouse and came upon this protest that was going on down there, and there was a sign held by a gentleman that says, "Trooper BB killed my son." I'm a journalist, I'm curious, so I stopped and I interviewed him. And come to find out, that was a great story. And then we printed it, and the title of it is, "Trooper Travis Beebe, Man of the Year or Menace to Society?" And it's just about even, come down on that. But we got more calls, more letters, more notes of confidence and encouragement when we came up with this headline. And there was one guy who called me, and he was almost in tears. He said, "I've been waiting all my life for somebody to write that story, because he's been terrorizing this community for years." So that's one of the reasons that, okay, here's this, the second one. Port Angeles United committee includes the CEO group whose membership is restricted and unknown. And then we're talking about the city here, years of failure and no consequences. We're talking about how the school board decided that they were going to rebuild the wheel. They had 2 wonderfully operating cosmetology schools in town, but the school system decided that they could do it better. And so they opened their own cosmetology school, and they're about $150,000 in the hole right now, and the students are not completing it. There's another one here which I like. Justice has left the building. Tells you about the poor treatment of indigent clients and how dangerous it is to continue that way, because Mount Vernon was sued a couple of years ago, and the citizens over there are going to pay a $6 or $7 million judgment because they do not provide adequate counsel to indigent defendants. Yes, sir.
So how do you support yourself?
Through advertising. Through advertising and subscriptions. All of you that are not subscribing, we would certainly urge you to do so. All of you that are running a business, we would certainly urge you to advertise with us. Yes, sir.
I have one good thing that came out of all this in the last 4 years.
Okay.
The Callum tribe went to the city council, and they didn't have to because they have Indian land. But they wanted to try to do it through the city council to get a new firehouse and everything else to go with it, the fire trucks, the EMTs and everything. The city council said, no, we got other things to do. So the Callum tribe said, well, the hell with you. So they built their own beautiful, they go out and service the pale faces with their fire trucks and their EMTs, trained all their firemen and everything else, plus they get 30% off the insurance for the casino. And that's a good thing that happened.
The tribes are doing a great job.
Sure.
If you want to get, I don't know if any of you that do not have a primary care physician right now, don't wait for OMC to get you primary care. You better go check with the Clallam tribes, because the last time I checked, it's 1,000 persons on the waiting list to get a primary care doctor through the OMC. I called the Clallam tribe yesterday. They said, oh, probably get in about a month. So that's still too long to wait if you have some dire circumstances.
Well, you can go to the barn down here and die. Yeah, I mean.
But they're spending a lot of time and energy and effort and money in places that I don't think are meeting the actual needs of what we're having. And a lot of it is because all of you are not registering your needs with your city councilman and with your county commission, or you're not calling them up when they make these goofy decisions like throw $1 million here and throw $1 million here. Yes, ma'am.
Dale, take a minute to talk about the public access project. And what is the opposition, if any, to public access? Because everywhere we've been, the cable channel, you can watch you can be bored to death with any public meeting in the world on the public access channel. So why is that not happening here?
The public access channel has been approved since 2002. There's actually $60,000 sitting over there at Wave Cable, just waiting for anybody who wants to, with the city, to come over and say, you know, we'd like to have a public access channel and it's a PEG, for public, educational, and government. So there's actually 3 channels available, and at any time since 2002, anybody that wanted to start a public access committee could have put it together and asked the city to ask for that money and go ahead and be doing public access. Now, what all is public access? We want to cover, again, as I said a while ago, everywhere where they're spending your taxpayers' money. But also, every time they have a notable speaker up here at the college, we could beam that into your homes. There's a group here, this is one of the most creative things I've heard about. There's a group here in town, in Port Angeles, who will get together for one weekend. And on Friday, they will start writing a play, a theatrical play. And by Saturday, they will have the play written and they will have it cast. And by Sunday, they will have done a little bit of rehearsal. And by Sunday night, they will put on a play that didn't even exist until Friday before. And we would like to take the cameras and cover this entire thing. Now, we're not going to try to put 3 days worth of programming on television, but we can break that up into 2 or 3 programs that shows the creative process, what they come up with, what they throw out, how they put this together, and hopefully inspire other people to get equally as creative, maybe not in theater, but it might be in a how-to guide on fishing or automobile maintenance or photography, whatever your thoughts or hobbies are. We think that there's somebody here in town that could benefit from your experience, and we want to get as much local program. When we say local, Clallam County, everybody that has Wave Cable here would be able to benefit from it. So we're going to teach production classes so that the students that are already in the television production class over at the Skills Center could come in and do their own productions and put them on television. They could learn the skills that they need to go into one of the television stations down in Seattle and go right to work. They'd know the nomenclature. They would know what they're talking about when they talk about the camera angles and lighting and miking and that sort of thing. So we really do want to try to not only get more information out into the community. That's the main idea, because as I told you, the daily paper is closed shop. The radio station is closed shop. We want something that is wide open to everybody and every view and every viewpoint. Yes, sir.
It sounds like that you're wanting to form an organization that does this, but then you're gonna turn it over to city council, who we know good and well, or the county commissioners good and well, that they can't run something like this. So how does that mesh?
When we actually get our organization together, and we've only met twice, so I know this is not very well thought out, but we've only met twice, but when we have the articles of organization, it's going to be such that we will have an arm's length relationship with the city. The city won't be able to, it'll have very little effect on this organization. Now, I encourage all of you who have any interest at all in broadcasting or television or one of the creative arts that want to get involved with this. We're going to meet again on July 11th, I think it is. It's not this Saturday, but the next Saturday, and it's at 1 o'clock, and it's over at the corner of 8th, at Race and Front Street. And you can get with me later to get more information on that. But the whole idea behind this is to open up the channels of communication within the community so that more people can get their ideas out, so that more light can be shined on the people who are spending your money, and maybe, just maybe, we can stop the flow of our tax money into whatever black hole that is it's going into, because we know it's not doing the most good for the most people with the way it's disappearing. Yes, sir.
Well, there's national legislation that has local implications, like the Wilderness Act. Have you taken a position or have you looked into that?
No, sir, we haven't. Again, what we're trying to do is as good a job as we can on the stories that are meaningful to us. And we're already, as you can tell from our earlier comment, we're not getting the full story on what we're doing, so we don't want to branch out too much further until we've got a handle on what we have a handle on. That's what we're trying to do. And please, I really appreciate that very frank feedback, and we need more of it. And I urge any of you who have a penchant for writing to send us your articles. Very likely, if they're not slandering somebody, very likely they'll get published. So we've got got time for about one more question. If anybody else has any thoughts or ideas. Yes, sir.
This is local stuff, nothing of a national import.
We're not trying to cover national stories. We feel like, my feeling is that this is somewhere in Clallam County, so I'm only concerned with Clallam County and the environs therein. There's a whole lot of other stories that I have a whole lot of opinions about, but they don't have anything to do with community building for where we are and what our sphere of influence. And I don't mean just Port of Calls, but everybody in here has a sphere of influence within the community, and that's all we're trying to do, is address our sphere of influence, which is Clallam County.
Do you expect national ads?
We would love national ads. In fact, I've been working on some of these grocery stores. It's awfully hard to get, we print 10,000 copies, and that's just a drop in the bucket for most national. Coca-Cola will, well, Coca-Cola doesn't do much print advertising. McDonald's will print, 1 million leaflets, and 10,000 means nothing to them. So we're working on them. We're not having much luck with them. Mostly our market is mom and pop shops, because if they have to go and get permission from somewhere outside the county, we're not going to hit their radar.
You had one national political ad.
Yes, that is this one right here that we've already taken some heat over. I hope some of you have seen it, and I hope you'll get a copy of this edition and take it home and pin it up inside your window.
Sure. Oh, Bernie.
Most people here would find that to be a joke.
Bernie Sanders is drawing bigger crowds than anybody. In fact, drawing bigger crowds to his rallies than all the other candidates put together. You may have heard that
Rachel Maddox had that on her show last night. It was very interesting.
Donald Trump had to pay people to come and stand behind him when he announced.
Right.
And I'm not even sure he can afford that now after Macy's and all those people. But Bernie Sanders is the only one who has promised to take on the Citizens United, take on the
Wall Street.
the Wall Street, and also no more permanent wars. My mom has 3 flags from a grateful nation. We don't want any more, not for our family or anybody's family. So Bernie is my pick right now. I hope he goes the distance, and I'm certainly glad to promote him. And yes, you're talking about barely hitting the radar. I don't know how many people will go along with this. I don't know how many people will throw rocks at this. I don't know how many have Bernie lining their birdcage right now, and it doesn't matter. Because I wanted to get it out there because Bernie is the only one that's talking about things that are really affecting the middle class, the disappearing, the rapidly vanishing middle class. So
I'm glad because it's the First Amendment.
Thank you so much for your time.